Hey, real quick, World Labs. I have a meeting with World Labs for Big Think AI, in which we're going to propose a hackathon collaboration with them. Ideally, the hackathon will be sometime around maybe May, maybe February, March. March is actually one of our bigger hackathons, so maybe May, maybe February. So we'll see how that goes, or maybe April, right? I'm very, very excited. I think World Labs is a company and stuff I've been following for a long time. I've also been following their founder, Fei Fei Li, really great person, really great work in the whole AI field with ImageNet and also in spatial intelligence and the world models in general. So it's gonna be really awesome to just talk to them and like have that full circle moment. In terms of what I really plan to go and do in this meeting, I think with these hackathon talks, it's much more about understanding their ecosystem because really why they want to do hackathons is to show off their ecosystem and see what people can build so they can show off to other people so they can be invested in the ecosystem. It's kind of like a give and take thing. Um, so I think even with like the talk we did with NVIDIA a couple months ago, that was like the really big thing they commended us for, where it's like, okay, you really understand our ecosystem. It was actually our vice president who really understood it really well. I didn't really understand like, oh, I knew like some terms here and there, like I didn't understand the nicks and crannies of the NVIDIA product ecosystem. So I think that really helps. So that's what I'm really working to do with the World Labs, understanding what they have. Luckily, they're a startup with only a couple of tools. They have their Marble one and they have their World API. So I've just been playing around with that. But I also think the big thing right now for me is really to get in the head of them and myself and envisioning what could really be built at hackathons for in a possible hackathon with UMD and World Labs. Like really understanding what might be right now. World Labs, they have a lot of cool stuff they do, but just to give a general idea, they kind of do a Gaussian splat of like environments and you can create like you could do the multiple images you create. You could do text to 3D and whatever. And it's really really cool. Um, there is in the surface. It's not like you have a lot of you can edit the environments, but you can't really interact with them as much. You can move around. So I imagine that's something they're going to implement in the future. So for me, it's really been thinking about what like to properly define this, and then once I properly define it, I can properly like understand I understand the constraints. I can understand the variations that come about through that constraint. So like stuff like initially I can't speak now. But initially, I think what I was thinking was, okay, it's gonna be like a 3D world model, interactability and all that. But then I realized like there's some stuff that just don't work at this certain stage. And when I'm talking to them, I don't want to come up with something who's like, I want to be like a visionary, but also want to be very practical in what I know people will be able to build. So I played around with more, understood the constraints, and realized, okay, so it's like more of a static environment that can move around with. You can obviously do some stuff where you edit stuff in Nanobrand Pro, you use the Marble tool, and you edit the environment more dynamic, you have more control. But in terms of what students may build, it's less about mimicking the world in a direct way, but more so having a sketchbook, right? So it's much more akin to a sketchbook, a notebook, than it is to a camera, right? There's just certain stuff you can't capture directly. I think that's still very useful and stuff. You can obviously take camera properties and use it, but I think the most ideal way, the most creative ways someone could go about this is using it more so as a notebook. So think something like, sorry, it's got a message. Think something, think something like, okay, I want like kind of a 3D notebook where I can store my notes, but more so in a 3D way where I can move around, traverse through ideas, have notebooks that are much more akin to like okay math. Maybe I separate my topics by history. So imagine having for history topics you have the American Revolution, you have the slave trade, you have slave trade probably the best one to use. You have the slave trade, you have the Industrial Revolution. Now, each of those could be a world in itself where you actually want to have like notes, and you once you see stuff visually, you can connect those ideas. So that could be really cool to traverse through. I think a limitation personally right now is I no longer have my Meta Quest 2. I don't have any XR, AR, VR devices on me. So even envisioning some of these ideas is a bit tricky. It's just been a lot of like playing around with my phone and just just thinking of it logically. But I think something like that could play out really well with the current tech stack and what they currently have available. I was also thinking stuff like just from a more consumer mindset, just like a general consumer. So let's say you want to plan a date night, you want to plan a date night and try and get the best vibe. So maybe it's a day night in your home, maybe in your apartment, and then you can maybe do something like we edit like the theme dynamic. Like, okay, what looks the best? What's the vibe I'm going for? You can apply this idea to maybe fashion and stuff along those lines. But that was something a lot more so. That's why I brought up the notebook idea because that's something more so like I don't think the trade off between AI image gen and this is big enough to say. Whereas like if I'm just a regular person and wanted to like, say, okay, I want to select the different variations I can do to plan a day night. I think an AI image gen would work much faster than this because the technology isn't right there. Maybe some might be more immersed, but just like in terms of like it's not a real thing. I may not get the precise details there. There's also other stuff you could do. So even with like that, something else also thinking about is that if you were to build a hackathon project, I think combining Nano Banana Pro 2 with this World Labs technology, you could get a lot of really cool adjustments into the image that you send into World Labs to have a lot of very consistent worlds. So I think that could be really helpful, and that could be something where someone's very interested. Um, but I don't know. I think it's really awesome. I think right now I'm still on the getting my head into the right space to understand the technology that can be generated. Like even these are just some like cookie cutter ideas, like nothing crazy. But I think I'm not gonna go list off. I just want to make sure that the person I'm talking to understands where my head is at, and hopefully, ideally, my head is at where he wants UMD to be at with this hackathon, and hopefully he sees that like, okay, this is gonna be a really awesome opportunity for us. In terms of other stuff, I think it's just a matter of being prepared, knowing the details of like, okay, where can this hackathon be hosted? Do we have any organizing team to help us do this? How do we do our previous hackathons? Stuff along those lines. They also interested in the demographics. They also want diversity. This was NVIDIA more specifically, but I imagine this is for other companies. But they also want to make sure their product is being used by diverse audiences, not just because like, oh, diversity is cool and all that, but also because you want to branch out into different demographics so you can have a larger market, essentially, or a larger consumer base. So I think at UMD, I think this is why I said with NVIDIA specifically, we're the best poised to do that because UMD is not only a great tech school, it's probably one of the most diverse tech schools that like top rated. Right? I think that's something I'm really excited about to like really hammer on that point. In terms of other stuff, I think it's really just a matter of like being confident, make sure I show the understanding, most like having fun with it and not just being ecstatic. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, very very excited. World Labs. This is kind of like I don't know if it's a dream come true, but very very excited. It's actually like something I've been fun for a while now. So let's just make the best of it. I really want to make sure this hackathon comes true because there's a lot of great things that could follow on from a hackathon like this. Besides that, I have nothing else to say. So have a great day.